Gonna be starting real soon. One moment. Oh, there we go. Hey, what's going on, everyone? We go big head. Boom, big head. What up, everyone? So, tonight we're gonna be streaming, or doing, or reviewing some game prep. This is episode 2 for Agents of Edgewatch. This is spoilers. Just be careful. Your host, your GM, Jared from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Game podcast. And yeah, so we're currently playing Agents of Edgewatch. Episode 1 of the Game Master Prep. Basically, we had our players kind of meet. They met a few of the major characters, the Lieutenant, Olo, which now becomes a hashtag YOLO for Olo. They loved him. It's always the weird NPCs, right? You don't prep them, but somehow these are the NPCs the characters just attach themselves to. The players just love. They're like, oh my god, this is the coolest character ever. And you're like, I didn't do anything. Wait, the king is not as cool as this guy. And you're like, no, this cabbage vendor I just made up on the spot. They're like, I love him. Anything this guy needs, I will make it my goal in life to do everything he needs. So the lieutenant, who's kind of like every generic cop movie lieutenant, hard ass, just a lot of rah, 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 rah. He gives the players all kind of meet up. The next session, one of the comments my players had was, hey, we didn't really describe what we look like. And I was like, yeah, we did kind of skim over that. That was a little weird. I kind of gave, if you listen to the episode, it's a very quick description of like, hey, they look like this or they look like that. You know, there was a hobgoblin. So I was like, oh, a hobgoblin shows up. And that's fairly rare. Like, if you're not up to date on Pathfinder lore, hobgoblins were technically an enemy. Those the Blood Wars or the Goblin Wars, and hobgoblins somehow achieved a not like a victory, but the leader of the hobgoblins, I forget her name. It has a really cool story. She winds up getting this gem, and it looks like a dagger, like a broken dagger, but it's like this massive gem, and it attaches to the elemental plane of Earth, and then they call it the Onyx Road, and that's the only way you could get there is with this magic gem that opens up a portal to the elemental plane of Earth, which they built like their city on. So there's this massive city where all the hobgoblins live. It's huge, but the only way to get there is like through knowing how to get to this secret path, and B, you have to be allowed in. Like if you go in, the hobgoblins are very militaristic. They're very very militaristic. So if you just show up, you're going to be, without an invite, you're not going to be greeted well. Anyway, because of that, hobgoblins now have achieved, I guess, like, they're now a major player because their country is almost inaccessible by anyone. They're now a major player. So a lot of nations are kind of courting them to get them on their sides because they can be a valuable asset in terms of just like the raw power they have. Excuse me. And yeah, so one of our players is playing a hobgoblin. It's an uncommon race, so you always have to double check with your GM. I'm the GM, so you know, Steve, he was like, hey, do you mind if I play hobgoblin? It's like, sure. So there was that. The other big thing was Trevor's character has a gold dragon because he's a summoner, and summoners, their summons are medium sized, which is really interesting because I believe all the familiars and the familiars and the pets that you could have, like as rangers or as druids, they all start small. So this is the only class that kind of starts with a medium size companion, I guess would be the best way to put it. So he has a gold dragon, because the option when you play summoner, and this is from the playtest, mind you, so it could change dramatically when the book of Secrets of Magic comes out in, I believe, June 2021, so next year sometime, unless you're listening to this in the future and it's out, then you'll know more than I will. Anyway, so the way summoner works is you choose your summons, and it's based on the spell school. So arcane, it's a dragon, you get a dragon, and they're working with making a new iconic for the summoner, and that iconic summon is a dragon. If you see the picture, it's drawn by one of my favorite artists. I have all his Magic cards. He did a lot of artwork for Magic the Gathering. So I have them all. Actually, shout out to my best friend Vijay. He got me them all just on the whim. I showed up one day and I had a bunch of Magic cards in the mail, and I was like, "What?" And it said, "Thank you, hey bro, stay cool." And it was all of his Magic cards. There was a few we didn't get because they were like $80 something, and I respected that. He was like, I just didn't get those for you. I was like, yeah, I understand that. Times are tough. So he got me that during, the COVID outbreak. That was really cool. I haven't gotten really a chance to play with them. So I have them all. So he's my favorite. He's one of my Wayne Reynolds. He does all the artwork, or a lot of the artwork for Pathfinder, and it's amazing. And the detail he goes into. One of the things that got me was the Bard character, Lem, the iconic Bard. I know I'm going off on a tangent. I apologize. We started on time, as Templar Blaze pointed out, so I have to fill the air with stuff. I wasn't prepped to start on time. So Lem is a Bard, and they redid everything for 2nd edition. And the artist, Mr. Reynolds, was talking about his concepts and Lem's weaponry. So if you look at the old videos when they were kind of like introducing the iconics before 2nd edition was released, he talks about Lem's weaponry, and he goes over the weaponry, and it's really, really cool. One of the weapons he gave Lem was a knife, and on the knife was kind of a song, not like a whole song, but it was like how you would the notes of the song, of a specific song, and it was just like a small segment, so maybe the chorus or something. And Wayne Reynolds goes into history, and that this was an actual thing. People used to have butter knives with songs emblazoned on them back in, I think, during the classical era, so like Mozart type time period, maybe even into like the colonial era. That was a very common thing, and he talked about it. And as a history major in college, and having my history degree, that just blew me away, that he went into such detail with this character and brought something from actual history into that character. So I thought that was amazing. I was like, oh my god, that. So from that moment on, I fell madly in love. So if Mr. Reynolds ever hears this and wants to sign one of my Magic cards, let me know. That would be one of my prized possessions. Anywho, where was I? So GM prep. So our characters didn't really get to describe themselves. They kind of just showed up, and besides that, we have a half-orc druid who is played by Jeff. We have a human cleric who looks like Mumra. And I joke. The character actually has bandages all over their body, and think like Darkman. If you ever seen that movie, Liam Neeson, Sam Raimi, old movie. So he has like wrappings, but they're all clean. He's very focused. He's very what's the word I'm looking for? When you're just he's a hypochondriac, right? With cleanliness, and he's cleanliness is next to godliness in his eyes. And as a cleric, makes sense, right? So he's all wrapped up, and I joke, he's played by Fabio Savius, one of the best names out there. Savius, your life, as he puts it. And yeah, he has so he looks like a mummy, and Trevor's playing a gnome with green hair. So this is his 3rd gnome in a row. Trevor loves gnomes. Tina is playing a half elf. I don't know what the other half is. I believe it's human. So half elf witch, and she has a really cool familiar. Her familiar is a little African, well, it looks like an African wild dog. Seeing how we're playing in a fantastical universe, I'm assuming it just would look like a really cool dog. And so the African wild dogs kind of have like an orangey tan fur with black spots and big round ears. So the ears kind of look like Mickey Mouse ears, kind of that big old round ears. Unlike domesticated dogs that we see with the more of a like a pointed ear, like or even like the floppy ears. These are like up and they're round, so that's interesting. What's going on, Dead OC Gamer? And then who else do we have? So Savius, we have our and Zach is playing Copper, who is a halfling, I believe. And yeah, so Copper is doing his halfling thing, and you know, so that's where the players are at. So the players, they got a quick meetup. They enter into the office, well, into the station, and they all kind of get rushed into the back station to meet. They meet Olo, the dwarf character. I love what they're doing in Pathfinder. So the dwarf is, I'm bad with colors. I'm sorry. So, you know, and this I'll get yelled at by Vijay again because he FIT major, right? So went to the Fashion Institute, and somehow he ended up with me as his friend, his best friend. So I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. So Olo is a dwarf, but not your stereotypical Scottish or Russian, right? Those are the two big dwarf ones, or German, right? Like Scottish, Russian, more Scottish, right? Everyone kind of leans heavily into the Scottish when you play a dwarf, but Olo is not that at all. Olo is actually, well, he's very soft spoken in my game. I soft spoken. He does the kind of repeats himself a little bit. Has a shaved head, beard. Obviously, he's a dwarf. Beards are still important to their culture. And he, if I could find the right page, I could show everyone. But he's more of a, I want to say like coffee toned skin color, or ebony, yeah, ebony skin tone, which I think is really cool. Like, you know, showing that you can choose what your characters look like and have them be. Oh, here's Olo on page 30. Let me slide my PDF down to page 30. Can I just search for page 30? Do I have that technology? No, I don't have it. Gonna give everyone a seizure who's watching this stream right now. Did I get to page 30? 23? Oh no! Olo, right there. Very bottom. So he has a shaved head. He has a big beard. Actually, his beard's really dope. I love his beard. I respect it. And yeah, he's ebony would be the right color. But I wish they did his eyes a little different of a color. They went with brown eyes, or like a dark brown eyes. And you know, I think it would have been nice to see maybe a little bit more color on the eyes. But I'm just nitpicking, right? That's just me being silly. So Olo in my game, Sergeant Olo, he is very soft spoken. He is the mediator between the sergeant and who is on the cover of the first book of Agents of Edgewatch, Devil at the Dreaming Palace. That's the sergeant. And actually, that's Lem on the cover too. So remember how I was talking about Lem and how much I love the redesign of Lem. So on the cover, you have Lem and the sergeant. The sergeant has like the bowl cut that you got from your mom when you were like 6. And she just was like, I'm not taking, like, I can't take you and your brothers and your sisters to the barber. It's just too many. Here's a bowl over the head, and we're just going to cut around, and then that's it. So it's the bowl cut that every little kid gets at some point in their life. And he has a big old bushy mustache, you know, fair-skinned and sandy blonde hair. and he's got like he's always wearing his breastplate and his armor. Yeah, porn stash. That's right, Templar Blaze. And if you don't know, if you're listening to this via the podcast, we do stream the Tuesday before our games, which is every other Wednesday, so it's every other Tuesday, and we're on Twitch, NVNG on Twitch. So if you ever want to stop in and listen and chat with me while I'm doing these DM preps, yeah, just please stop in, chat. And yeah, so he's got like the big old porn mustache, as Templar Blaze says, and he carries around his nightstick, and he's kind of like rotund. He's heavy set. He's husky, right? He'd work in he would go shopping in the big and tall section. But I think that leads to his mystique of being this rough and grumbly type guy. He's very well respected. The book goes into great detail about that. And they talk about how in like other guards, and the reason why he was put in this position is because of his reputation, which ironically one of my characters is playing a similar character to him. So they kind of are on the same vein of character development. So I could see that being something where like they kind of respect each other, or they learn to grow in respect to each other. So yeah, so that's Sergeant Olo, the lieutenant, and there were other characters I threw in there that the players didn't really get to talk to. The book puts them in, doesn't really give you a lot with them. They say who they are and why they're in this division, and kind of like their motives. But besides that, they don't really come into play. I'm not 100% sure if they're going to come into play later at all. One of them has the option of being a love interest, but we already did the love interest in our last game. Not that I'm ever avoiding love interest. I just find that two of my players already have families. They've already established that the families live in Absalon. So that's something there. One of my players is, the job is their life. So I don't see them being a love interest. The other player, let me see. Savius looks like Mummy. And the other one's a druid. Maybe Jeff might be the love interest option. We'll see how that plays out. I'm not really counting that in right now. And yeah, so they all met. They met Sergeant Olo. They met these other three detectives or agents. And then they got to meet the lieutenant. The lieutenant basically yells at them, says he was hoping for the best of the best. When you get there, you see they saw another division or another set of agents leaving after they were getting yelled at. And then basically the sergeant was like, hey, listen, there's a fight. And we talked about this in the first one. The fight was, there's a bunch of adventurers in a tavern, and they're kind of starting a bar brawl. And I like that concept because they were starting a bar brawl. And how many of us have been on that opposite side of that fence, right? Like you're playing in your campaign, you're in the bar, and boom, bar brawl breaks out. It's kind of some way for the adventurers to blow off steam. So my players get there and diffuse the entire situation, quick, fast, and in a hurry. We had nice role play, and what was really cool was they all role play more than they relied on their stats. Fabio does have high charisma, so he was able to roleplay that out. There was an interesting interaction between Fabio, Steve character, and the dwarf, who was kind of trying to start, not Olo, another dwarf, generic dwarf barbarian who was trying to start like a brawl. They saw a guy like laid out, and he had like a black eye, and they didn't jump to any conclusions. And that's not part of the book. I put that in. I was trying to like goad them with that situation, and they decided, hey, listen, we're gonna talk this out. They had another character there who's like kind of an ogre, ex character, very large, and he was like gonna get into a fight with the dwarf, and they broke that up. They separated the two, and they roleplay talking to the sergeant, to this dwarf, and they talked him down. They had explained what was going on, and then Steve's character, who's all about the law, gave him a bunch of citations, and then that dwarf kind of got the rest of the adventuring party to leave. While that was going on, there was, again, in the book they say, hey, there's this rogue. They were trying to steal something from patrons. They got caught, and now the patrons are mad, and they're caught, right? So the guards have to figure that situation out. I made it that the rogue stole like a wedding ring or a family ring from two patrons, right? Two generic patrons. And they were yelling at the rogue when the players got in, and this was cool. So the players kind of like separated themselves right off the bat. They didn't choose. They didn't have a conversation. They went with thank you, Blaze, for clipping that. Yeah, it's yeah. What kind of guards are you? Yeah, exactly. It is from a few weeks back. Yeah, because we took a week off. So it would be 2 weeks ago. And yeah, they the patrons were yelling, and then the players were like, the players separated themselves. They just kind of honed in on what they wanted. Ironically, Tina's character has a familiar. She wound up speaking to the wizard whose familiar died, and they kind of bonded over that and helped foster that situation. There was a cleric of Kate and Kaylin who was getting drunk, and I felt like I could have did more, but I chose against it because they already had 3 role-play encounters happening all at once, and I didn't want to overload them with this Kate and Kaylin character. So the rogue was being handled by Jeff and Trevor, and Copper was like floating around. Copper was a floater. Copper kind of bounced around from the 3 different encounters, trying to like mitigate and figure out what's going on. And Copper helped out that way, was always kind of around giving aid to, like, actually using the aid action to help the other players make their rolls, which was really useful. Because at the early levels, the DCs are still fairly hard. Remember, like, at higher levels, DCs get way easier most of the time, right? Like, it's just you have a higher chance of rolling to hit that DC than at low levels, and you have magic items or abilities and stuff like that. So, yeah, Trevor and Jeff, Chakrundin and Trevor's character, who probably has a super easy name, and I am just not remembering it right now. So that's on me. I'm sorry, Trevor. So Trevor's character, start talking to the rogue. The rogue's like, "Hey, I didn't take it. I'm sorry. I don't know what they're talking about. They lost it. They kind of just looked at me. They said, "Hey, you look roguish. You probably stole it." And they searched the person, didn't find anything. They had a roll. Neither one of them hit the perception check. So then they had Tina's character make a perception check. She didn't make it, and they were like, he doesn't have it. Like, we clearly checked them. We clearly checked them. We didn't find anything. We're sorry, you must have lost it. We'll help you look for it. So at that point, the dwarf, now being calmed down by Fabio, Zach, and Steve, tells the rest of the party, "Hey, let's go. I got a bunch of citations I have to pay for. Let's just leave. It's not like we're not going to get into a fight. Like, we talked it out." So they leave. As they're leaving, the rogue kind of throws the ring down the stairs, and then they find it at the edge of the stairs. And they're like, "Well, we found your ring." And, they knew what was going on. They knew the rogue did take it. But they played it out really well. They really role-played it, and they got all the role-play experience, which I love, again, in this book. For role-playing and figuring out situations without combat, they were able to get more XP. So they go back. The captain's like, "Awesome, dope. You did your job. Go to bed. Come back tomorrow." They came back tomorrow. We were told to walk the beat, and that's kind of where we left off. So what happened on Walk the Beat? Walk the Beat basically, going back to the adventurers. As I said in my previous one, I was hoping they weren't turned to a combat. They didn't. and now the adventures are going to be useful to them. Like maybe they can use them later on in other scenarios. Also, maybe if they want to do like some side stuff, they can do it with the adventures and downtime activities. We could do stuff in between books, from book 1 to book 2. We can do like a side adventure where, like, if they want to play the adventure, those adventures, they can play it. It's like a different view of a story. I'm still playing around with that idea. So that's interesting. The problem is there's only 5 and I have 6 players. So we'll see how that works itself out. I mean, we could always make a 6 character, right? Nothing set in stone. Anywho, walking the beat. So they walked the beat. They split the party. I split the party. I made it. It was easy. I split the party by who was on top screen and who was on bottom. Turned out it was Fabio, Tina, Steve, I think it was, and then it was Zach, Jeff, Trevor. Yeah, that's how it was. And no, it was Jeff, Steve, Trevor. Yeah, Jeff, Steve, Trevor, Zach, Tina, Fabio. That's how it split. I remember now. So what happened was the first part of splitting the party, right? Like we talked about having this adventure be able to split the party, walk the beat in 2 separate paths. So the first half, the characters wound up Team A, Fabio, Zach, Tina, wound up going to the shop and having a conversation with this woman who was like, hey, someone in my shop, can you get them out? It turned out to be a little boy. His master went he's a hedge wizard, or a wizard in training. His master went MIA. The kid remembered his master talking about that the master had a rival when they were in the college. The Absalon has a college of wizardry, and this was the rival to his master or his teacher. So the kid thought that this rival did it. Turned out the lady didn't even remember the other guy and was like, I don't know. I had a dude over last night. I don't know. Fabio had a really fun interaction. So I don't know if this lingo is going to be usable in the future, but or if you're listening to this and you're not from America, the term Karen has been created, and it's a woman who is aggressively obnoxious. And when I say aggressively obnoxious, I mean aggressively obnoxious. Does everything in their power to press your buttons and is mean about it. It's not even like they're just pressing your buttons just because they're jerks or whatever. They are spiteful and mean. So in the book, it doesn't even say that. In the book, they kind of say like, hey, she just kind of acts as the guards to do it. But I made her a Karen because in my head, I made this whole backstory like right before they got there, that she in the high school was a pretty girl, one of the elitist girls, and she was just a mean girl, and boom, we role played that, and now I made her a Karen because she had all this privilege given to her. Her family was rich, so she never really went through any problems, and she was just mean to people she felt were beneath her, and she felt that the guards were beneath her and they shouldn't be asking all these questions. So I role played it out. And there was a few moments, like even after the stream, we were talking. And if you're part of our Patreon, you can hear the after the stream and before the stream chatter. And you could hear Fabio was like, yo, bro, you pressed all my buttons on that one. Like, it almost turned into a physical encounter with her. And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And he was like, yeah. He was like, she was about to catch these hands. And I was like, yep, I knew it. I tried my best to do my best to like just press your buttons, and he loved it. He thought it was hysterical. Yes, Blaze, it is a Patreon benefit unless you're cool. And sorry, Blaze. Yeah, no, you get stuff. Oh, we gotta take those pictures and put them up on our Instagram for all the swag we sent you. I'm so glad you got it. And thank you, Trevor, if you're listening. Thank you very much for getting that out to Blaze. Yeah, so Blaze is one of our oldest. Him and Wiz are our oldest like Patreon people, and they get like super secret behind this stuff because they're part of our Discord. Also, if you're a Patreon, you get into our Discord, or if you're really dope and just hang out with us a lot, we just invite you to our Discord. We're not in it to make a ton of money. We're not in it for money at all, actually. We're just in it because we're a bunch of mooks who like having fun. And so we he was like, yeah, I was about to like, she was about to catch these hands. Like I was about to lay on the hand to her in real life. And I was like, I'm so glad you didn't, because there's nothing in there for that. But it was fun. He was like, no, I had a ton of fun. Like it was really cool. And that I was just inspired. It was I could have made it a very boring encounter. But the cool thing was, because of Tina's background, and this is always a reason to talk to your players, have a session 0 and say, hey, listen, I know I'm not 100% sure with 5th edition, but with Pathfinder and Paizo's stuff, there's always, for all their APs, there's always a player's guide that comes out beforehand, a few weeks before it comes out. And it's kind of like a quick summary of what you to expect as a player of the entire adventure path. AP stands for adventure path. And they also, in 2nd edition, there are backgrounds. And it says, hey, listen, you can choose whatever backgrounds you want. Fine. But if you choose these backgrounds, you get additional benefits. And one of the backgrounds was you are part of the guards that worked at, you were a guard that worked at the magical school. Tina took that background. And when she's talking to the kid, she's like, oh, I went to the college. I was a guard at the college. I went there. And it says in the book, if any of the guards that are talking have that background, the kid stops and is 100% honest with them, 100% like stops whatever they're doing. So boom, kid had that happen, and all of a sudden it resolved itself. Sadly, Copper got beamed in the head with a rock or a book or something, because he tried to climb in a window, and the kid telekinetic projectile hit Zach's character in the head. So while that was going on, team 1, because we took the old this is gonna date me, Futurama. So there's team A and team 1, so that no team feels like the second place team. So team 1, which was Steve, Trevor, and Jeff, are going through the market stalls areas. So remember, this is Absalon, and it's the festival. This is a massive festival. So it's kind of like a line, like a massive, maybe like 2 blocks worth of like stalls, like small stalls for just food, different kinds of foods. And they got a complaint that there were 2 stalls were fighting. Turned out they get there, 2 different goblins are fighting. One has fried food, and the other one is pickling stuff. And they're kind of across the street from each other, and they're just throwing stuff at each other. And when the guards get there, turns out one of the goblins, the oil starts to catches fire, and now they're like, oh my god, it's on fire. So they have to put it out. They have like 1d4 rounds before it gets explodes. And it would have taken them out. I think they all said, like, if it went off and they failed, 2 of them would have like been like, yeah, I was dead outright. And I think Steve might have been the only one whose character had enough life to survive that. He's a magus, and they don't have that much life to begin with. Again, playing from the playtest from Secrets of Magic. So this could all change. And also, I have a freestanding rule as a GM or DM, and that is everyone gets 1 class change token. If you really hate the class, you don't feel like the class fits, you could use it, and your character has to stay the same. So you have to stay. If you're playing a hobgoblin and whatever your background is, those stay. But the class can change. And it's no skin off my teeth, because, again, this is a game. It's a role-playing game. It's a cooperative storytelling game. And the point is to have fun. I'm not going to be a monster about it. So at any point in time, if any one of my players is like, hey, can I use that class change token? Sure. I have it to level 5. Once we hit level 5, you're kind of locked in. And the reason why I do that is level 5 is kind of long to just now decide, be like, I don't really like my class. You're 5 levels in, dude. Like, what? Like, usually most of the time you know that by like level 2, level 3. Especially like it might not just fit the story at all. You're like, oh, I made a fighter, but this is all role play. And there's no fighting at all. Can I do something else? You know? So, they actually arrest the goblins and have the goblins get sent to the station to be booked, and they're gonna be given like a sentence. Nothing severe. They didn't do it on purpose. It was more of like a public disturbance at max. And what I love is Steve's character is this very by the book, almost Judge Dredd, Mr. I'm the law character, who is, by the way, that was my terrible Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd voice. And he came to me and he was like, hey, I'm already playing Magus, so I'm kind of doing something crazy already. Do you mind if I do something else crazy? And I was like, nah, man, go crazy. I love crazy. Crazy's fun. And he was like, hey, so I was wondering, again, we talked about this in episode 1. Like, do you mind if I start making up laws, like little laws that would be involved here? And I was like, no, man, like go for broke. And so he's making up laws, and he's giving them citations of like, oh, public disturbance, wasting food, blah 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 blah. And and I was like, yeah, like I obviously you can't be like, oh, this is insta death, but if you're just giving citations, that's fine. And he was like, yeah, that's all I really wanted to. So I was like, yeah, that's cool, man. Like, that's fun. That's just role play, and it's really adding to your character. So he was giving them citations, writing up citations, and handing it to them as they're getting arrested, which was fun. And yeah, so we had that happen. And what else went down? So that's kind of where we ended, right? And that's crazy because it took like a 4-hour stream. I think we started at like 7:45 and we ended at like 12. It was pretty late. And yeah, 7:45 Eastern Standard Time if you're listening to this. And it was just crazy. It was awesome, but yeah, it was insane. That took 4 hours. I was like, man, I thought that was going to go more. And here's the crazy part. They're not done with the beat yet. And so now I have to go back and look at, this is where we kind of prep again, what's going to happen for the rest of the beat. Now, there's 2 halves that are going to happen. I kind of spoke about this in the last episode. The rest of the beat, there's 2 more actions to happen. The Risen Dead and the mugging at the Walking Castle. So, excuse me, one of them is a combat encounter. The skeletons, they rise from the grave, and another one is a chase scene, and both of those are really fun. I think they can both be really fun. Now here's the thing, all of these are going to end up where there is a panic at the zoo, right? So my players will be walking the beat, and they're like, hey, you have to walk the beat. And then it says on, I'm sorry, I'm just flipping hardcover book. It says over here, guards on page 9. Just to let you know how far we're in. Page 9, it says guards. And so it says basically, they are supposed to walk the beat and then head back to the station. On the guards, it says they could do any of these encounters and then have to head back to the station. So I kind of split it up. So here's the thing. Team 1, Steve, Jeff, Trevor, technically had a combat encounter. Not an aggressive combat encounter, but a combat encounter. And Team A, Fabio, Tina, Zach, had a role-play encounter. So now I'm thinking maybe switching it up. So Team A will have the combat encounter with the skeletons, and Team 1, Steve's team will have the mugging where they have to chase. Now both of them are really fun, but here's the thing. I feel that the combat encounter for Fabio, Tina, and Zach will be a little easier for them because Fabio is a cleric and Zach is a monk. So they have a lot of ways to handle the undead doing extra damage. Now it says there's going to be 4 skeleton guards, right? So what that entails is, so you're going to look over, so 4 skeleton guards, they're all -1 creatures, right? So let me bring this up so we can see on roll 20. Sorry, that is not the right thing. Roll 20, that is actually what's coming up, the panic at the zoo. But I could flip it. So we would technically, I just put it here on Absalon. This is what Absalon looks like. But if you look on roll 20, the next thing they have is they don't have a map for this. And now in the book, they say, hey, you can use this other map. So I'm going to have to put a map in, right? So I'm going to have to add in a map for the combat encounter. And that was kind of the reason why we moved over to roll 20, was because of the map option. I don't know. I think they could do it. Theater of the Mind. It's only 4 skeletons. Skeletons aren't crazy high CR. They're, I think, at best. Let me double check their CR. Creature, monsters. So I'm just searching through my PDF. Bestiary. So I'm going under monsters. Skeleton guard. Let's see how much HP they have. 4 HP. They have a lot of resistances, but they do have slashing, piercing, fire, electric, cold, resistance, death, disease, mental, negative healing helps them. They have no weaknesses, as I can see. Just resistances, but I feel like they could take them. I'm like 16 AC. I'm not too worried. I think they could take them. I think they could take them. Also, as a DM, but these are the goblins I fought. As a DM, you could always change that, right? You can always just be like, oh, you hit the goblin, or you hit the skeleton, it's dead. Done. You did enough damage to it, it's dead. They don't know. They don't need to know it has 4 HP. They don't need to know any of that stuff. They don't need that. So they're going to do that. And then for the chase, I think I already said this. I'm going to be using the Paizo 2nd edition Game Master chase cards. So we have a bunch of different chases out. I've already selected, pre-selected, went through them. They have rules to them, what we're going to do. But I think, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to the cart, to the construction site, to the precarious beam, and then the twisting alley. They have specific rules on how you have to run them. There's like chase points. On the bottom, you have to get a number of chase points to beat each card, and the NPCs have to do it too. I don't think I'm going to follow that rule to the T. I'm probably going to work it in a different fashion, because the reason why I'm saying that is I really want to get them, because what happens is they do the walk in the beat, they get back to the sergeant saying, hey, listen, this is what we had to deal with. And Sergeant Olo says to them, hey, listen, we got, like, you have to get that back out there. And I'm looking over here on page 13, and they talk about, you know, the zoo. The zoo, and how there was this crazy escape, and basically Sergeant O, it says basically it's called Knight's Marvelous Menagerie, a small zoo in which patrons can gawk at rare creatures, both magical and mundane. Right? So that's a feature of the zoo. Let me pop over onto roll 20 so I could show you so I could show everyone the zoo. So here's the zoo, right? Let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see. Make it nice. So you have all these really cool spaces. They have the monsters put in, and the really cool names for all the monsters that they have here. one of them is not here. Supplies. Flash beetle, blood, rust. Supposed to be one more monster here. Huh. Oh, I know what it is. It's on a different layer. Yep. There it is. There's the other monster. So there's different layers. Object tokens, maps, and backgrounds. So there you go. So here's the map. Oh no, I moved everything. There, fixed it. Did I? Nope, I did. So there are. I'm just gonna do it like this. It's a little safer that way. Can't accidentally start moving everything. So at night, zoo. The creatures got out. Sergeant Olo just received word that some of the night's creatures have managed to escape and are terrorizing the zoo's visitors, but terrorizing zoo visitors and surrounding businesses. It's up to the agents to put things back as quickly and report back. The map is on page 12 of the zoo, which is in here. So everything in B4, see, you'll see B4 here, is the zoo, and everything outside is the businesses. So there's like a little carts and cafes and in here and stuff like that. Now, so there is a possibility for them to find out information. So again, spoilers. If you are listening to this and you're playing it and your GM gets mad, not really my fault. I'm letting you know now, this is spoiler territory. So what's going on here is the reason why I want to move my players here as quickly as possible is these are all combat encounters. Again, there's no way to resolve these without, well, technically they're all combat encounters, right? So we're just doing this technically. Technically, they're all combat encounters because the monsters are all hostile. And why are the monsters all hostile? Well, if your players have nature, this is going to be great because Jeff was very hesitant to play a druid. He wanted to play a druid. He was very hesitant to play a druid. Didn't really see how it would work in the city. Turned out, boom, right here in book 1, third big scenario, you have a lot of naturey stuff, right? So this is great for your rangers, your druids, your clerics of nature, your rangers, and oracles. Does Oracle of Life would maybe work here, but yeah, so it's great because it's just a lot of nature checks, right? So nature check 15, it tells them that their hostility is abnormal and they're froth, and all the creatures are frothing this black froth, like foam from the mouth. So I want to emphasize that so that they'll make that check. I'm not going to tell them to make the check, right? Like that's something I don't really do. I don't say, oh, make a check. This is what you notice. I want my players to make that choice, to make that check, because then they feel like they knew what to do, and it's kind of rewarding to realize that you knew what to do. So, and here's the problem: all these creatures are crazy high level. CR3. CR3, CR2, CR0, CR4. So these are like very high creatures, and they're gonna have to really think of interesting ways to deal with them, right? And be able to deal with these situations, because piling on, right? You're one of them's an owl bear, and not to be mean, but owl bears are tough at early levels. They might just be like, nope, can't handle that, which is an option, right? They can nope themselves out of this, or try and figure out. So I think I have to prep right here is prepping options for them to really resolve this situation. So they talk about like these different areas. So you see B6, B8, B13, B14, B3, B15, B5, yeah, etc., right? So they see them, and where I want to put my players, right, I want to get them over to B11, which is right here. right? So B11, B12. I want to get them here. And why do I want to get them here is two reasons. One, this is the manager's, so this is Knight's wagon, and this is the vet wagon. Now, other stuff comes about, but I really want to push them this way to get them there, because in both of them, so one of them, there's 3 sleeping darts. So in here, they will find 3 sleeping darts, and in here, in the manager wagon, they'll find 3 sleeping darts, and then in B12, they will find a wand of command, a dose of anti-paralysis, bunch of healing potions, charm, and speak with animals. So a lot of really useful stuff for them. But here's the problem. They're coming this way. They're definitely coming from up here. They're coming from the very top near B3 and B2. I could bring them up near B1 and B4, but you could clearly see the way they designed this map, that you're coming from, where is it, the north section on the map, near B3 and B2, and the big problem here is they're going to hear B3 and B2 losing their minds. One's an owlbear and one's a rust monster, and if you don't know what it is, a rust monster is a monster that just eats metal, and there's a lot of stuff happening in there. And in B2, an owlbear is an owlbear. It's exactly that. It's a bear that is also an owl. It is not a friendly creature. So, and the owlbear is eating, and the rust monster is eating. Both of them are eating a lot of stuff. And then to even get into the gates, they see B1. There is an axe beak, which, if you've never fought that, it's just like, imagine an ostrich, and its beak is the shape and density of an axe. So it just wrecks you. I had a character once die due to axe beak. Oh, sorry. That's a cockatrice. I apologize. Beak tooth is a cockatrice. That's even worse. That means they're gonna get turned to stone. So now they have a possibility of being turned to stone. What? So I need my players to be smart. So how am I gonna how's that work, right? How do I get my players to wind up being smart? Well, first and foremost, I now need to add a bunch. Whoop. Oh, Chakran Dean, Neil Locke, Chakran Dean. Trevor's character is Ryder. Ryder. There it is. Boom. So, free assets, characters, goblins, were creatures. Yeah, let's grab some goblins. Why do we want goblin kobolds? Nope. Goblins, gerblins. All these guys got weapons. Oh, that makes me sad. I gotta get some like NPC goblins that have no weapons. But anywho, basic townfolks. There we go. Not skeletons, townsfolks. Why do I want townsfolks? Is I want them running. I want people. They're not moving. This is a child. So I want them fleeing. I don't want them. I want my players to realize that it's going down. So they are coming into a panic. They can help direct the NPCs out. And also, it's going to be time for them to kind of axing what's going on. And they're going to have the chance to be like, hey, what's happening? And, oh, man, basic undead. I have zombies. I have skeletons I could use for the skeleton encounter. I might make a map. I might add a map to this and have it. I don't really think they need it, but I just want to use these tokens. I'm sorry. Pirates? Any like running pirates? Deckhand looks like they're running. So it's all gonna be, if they have the wherewithal to stop people, to figure out to stop people and say, hey, what's going on? They'll kind of get clues as to what they're dealing with in certain areas. I'm not gonna say like, there's a were rat in there, or there's a an owl bear, but they're gonna be like, oh, there's a giant bear in there. And be like, a bear, okay, and then they see an owl bear, and they'll be like, oh, it's an owl bear, and then be like, oh, there's a giant cricket, giant cricket. Oh, rust monster. If you don't know what a rust monster looks like, it looks like a giant freaking cricket. You ever see those? Well, we have them in New York. They're like cave crickets. That's what we call them. They live in basements on the island, and if you've ever seen them, they are freaking just these massive. Like my parents have them in their house, and it's the craziest thing in the world. And they're these like massive, ugly crickets, and they're huge. They're dire crickets. Like when you step on them, you feel like you just got an XP point. You're like, they make a crunching sound. Sometimes they don't die and they fight back. It's just crazy. This guy's a fighter, but he looks like he's running. They're not gonna. They're not gonna notice that. But here's a dwarf. Dwarf in the mix. It's got runes on. Should make him bigger because he's kind of tiny. Yeah, like when you step on them, you definitely get like 1 XP. So my hope is they'll start to stop and just ask what is happening, and they'll be able to hear like, oh my god, there's a giant bird down there, and it's spitting stones or something, and that's a cockatrice. And then, oh no, there's a giant bear. It's in the market. And they'll be like, oh shit, like it's in the market. Like, how are we gonna stop a giant bear? And it's in the market, like I'm hoping that will push them to want to like really think about their choices here. I have to zoom in on this because I don't understand what I'm looking at here. Sorry. Yeah, she is turned properly. Okay. She's exiting the market. Yeah. So she's exiting the market. She's like, oh, I'm leaving the market. Even up here. You see over here. Yeah. Leaving the market, no. So because you guys don't need to see all that over there. These guys are sitting down. That's a lord. That's a witch. I guess that's good, right? So, yeah, if they see some of these tokens, they're gonna be like, why didn't the guy with the 2 battle axes stop the bear? Yeah, so I'm looking for all character tokens that swashbuckler. Yeah, there you go. Here's a big dude. He's throwing knuckles up, but he is running. That is his running stance. Yeah. So they're kind of, the point is to have this like exodus of people, and so a few things can happen. My plan is, yeah, Blaze, right? They're just these giant freaking crickets. You just step on one and you're like, well, got an XP point. My hope is for 2 things. One, if someone's leaving here, they might try and stop that person. 2, if they stop any of these NPCs, I can exposition dump on them. And I want them to know a few things. One, I want them to know that B12 and B11 are important. Those are good areas for them to find stuff they might be able to use. So really useful areas for them to be able to find and use. This pencil that I have in my hand does not work. Probably the reason why I thought I got rid of it. Shame it doesn't work. It looked like a nice pen. Let me see. Unless I'm doing something wrong. Anyway, yeah, so where was I? So I need them to know that, but also in B10, I believe. Yeah. B10, the reptile room. there are staff members in there that can give more expedition dump. So the staff members are Risa and Tillman. And additionally, there are other people here, Neil, and there's an option for them to find his son who's somewhere in this area lost. So I'm just highlighting the book. I did a terrible job highlighting it. My marker was like doing this weird thing. Because yeah, I highlight my book. I'm the only one using this, so it's good for me, and it makes sure when I'm on that page I see, oh look, that's what they should know. So why do I want them to get to B? Let's say B10. So where's B10 on this map over here? So B10 is right here. It's in the bottom, so they have to pass B12 and 11. So they barricaded themselves in there. There is a separate situation with a Almirage, which is an uncommon small beast, which looks like a bunny rabbit with a unicorn horn. That's terrifying. That's terrifying, actually. But they said half a dozen patron, and the 2 people are hidden in here. So I'm going to use let's use really fun, interesting people. So they're both human. It says human, male and female, zookeepers. So let's use interesting zookeeper people. So I got nothing here. I really gotta like figure this stuff out. This caster, yep, there we go. B10. We'll put him here. I think that's like a halfling. That's definitely like a halfling or something. So I had to stretch it out on Roll20. God, what would I do without this stuff? That is definitely a halfling. It said caster, but that's definitely a halfling. And let's see what else we got here. Slanty, this is what I imagine Slanty streams. And then, oh, Slanty, you can't links. You don't have the coolness to post links. I apologize. Let's see. Dwarves. Maybe that's the reason why. Do we have nobles? Male caster. Female caster. Male caster. Female caster. Yeah, you're right. It is only who. I don't know who it is. I'm sorry, Slanty Streams. Male. So I have that male guy and this female. What do I got? Got Hunter? Ah, that no. Butcher? No. Bar patron, bar patron. Female noble. No. That is the fanciest costume. Child female. No, no. Barbie. Yeah, let's get rid. The L is a oh. Not doing basic things. I'll put you in Discord. Well, I'll tell was it Blaze if you happen to be Blaze, if you happen to be in the thing and you could give coolness to Slanty streams, could you please give them the cool ability to tag? Additionally, Slanty stream should be following me, following our stream. So B10, there's supposed to be half a dozen people in this room, and these are all 5-foot squares. So it says Knight's Marvelous Menagerie, 1 square equals 5 feet. Hello, Slanty streams. Oh, alright, well. Someone's gonna have to give you that power. Because Steve controls everything I do. Don't let Steve ever lie to you. We are his slaves. He controls our what was the old what is it thing? We control the horizontal, the vertical. It was the old TV show, not Twilight Zone. It was the other one. There was another show like Twilight Zone where they're like, we control the vertical, we control the horizontal, and that was the whole premise of the thing. But B10 is supposed to have, I digress. B10 is supposed to have half a dozen people in there. So a dozen is 12, so 5 people are supposed to be jammed up into this small room, and I'm not going to fill it. But I do want my players to head that way, because once they're in there, that's right, Steve, you rub your hands maniacally. So they head in there, and that's where, and I could twirl my mustache. See, I could twirl all day. That's where they get Expedition Dump, and additionally they get a secondary mission from this person called Niels. Neil lost his son, and that touches home base with me, because as a new father, that isn't my nightmare. That is any parent's nightmare, losing their child, right? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, it's anyone's nightmare. Lose someone you love, right? But this is thoroughly terrifying. So Neil is going to be Nil's plight, Nil. N-I-L. Patron here, a human named Nil, begs Edgewatch to locate his son, Jurov. It's a terrible name for a child, Nil. Became separated amid the chaos. The child is somewhere in here. So that's a great thing, because then that tells the guards that they have like kind of a higher mission here. Like a missing child is tantamount to, they have two things. They have to contain these creatures, which are vastly superior to them, because this is a zoo, right? So imagine you're being like, hey, we gotta stop the zoo's now there are lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, what are you going to do? And now there's a lost child somewhere around in here. Now for me, I know what lost child is. Lost child is in B14, and B14 is terrible, because that is an Ankeg, and Ankegs are insanely powerful. Ankegs do the most. So this is gonna be rough. B15 over here, there's a gnome Remy, who is really important actually. So even like getting them, if they get in here into B4, they can go north. If they do, they have to make a left. They can't make a right, because Remy is in the supply shed and knows everything that's going on in here. Remy is the oldest worker in Knight's Marvelous Menagerie, and has taken care of a lot of the creatures in here, specifically the rust monster, and to the point that Remy has a cartoon image tattooed on his shoulder of the rust monster, of Rusty, the rust monster. And put the child on the map. So they yeah, they're looking for. They can get to Remy. Remy can tell them everything they need to know. Um, where's Nil? Nil's kid, Jer, Jerov, Jerov. Jerov is B14. If the heroes manage to rescue him and reunite him, Nil will give them 17 gold pieces, but they won't accept it, so he will make a donation to the Edgewatch. Nil is in B14, so he is over here hiding. Now there is a way to set this token. See, so all these tokens, they can be seen except for this one. There's a reason for that. This one right here is 10 feet in the ground. So I want to set you layer. He will be on the gym layer. Why? Because he is hiding right there in B14. The Ankeg has massacred several people. The only person still alive is a 7-year-old boy named Jarab, who was able to slip into the enclosure and shut the door, jamming the still functioning crystal half of the locking mechanism with bone from the Ankeg's previous meals, and is also hiding out. So, you know, that's an option. Now, how do you get in there? Who knows? Does the Ankeg? They could probably talk to him. There also seems to be no other way in. Maybe breaking the glass is an option, but there's still this fucking Ankeg that's in there. That is a crazy powerful creature. I don't know how they're gonna handle that. That actually, they might need. That's why they need to get here, is to get the rod of command and those darts. If they could get to Remy, who's in B15, let me put up. I can also have Remy give them like 2 darts, because they're definitely gonna need as much help as possible. Let's see what we got in the freebie section. None of these guys look good enough. Characters. Oh, Dead Soldier actually. Yeah, put a few of these down. Several bodies. Nope. But yeah, let me put this right there. Put it right there. We'll put one right there. That's 4. Ah, that's right. Oz. Ankeg repellent from the Bat utility belt. Aha! Wasn't expecting that, were you? There you go. There's another one. So that's 6. So we'll use 6. 7 seems like a lot. As I'm putting them down here. 7. So remember, each body takes up a 5-foot square, and this is only 5, 10, 20, 25, 30. It's 30 feet long by 10 feet wide. So that's the whole corridor. And the Ankeg is a large creature, or yeah, is a large creature. So yeah, that's rough, because again, the Ankeg takes up most of the room, so they would be coming in, and this giant thing is just eating, you know, leftover people, because that's what Ankegs do. I mean, they could theoretically pull it out, but then you're looking at a bigger situation, which is, oh hey, there is now an Ankeg on the streets. Like, oh, it's someone else's problem now. Elf, gnome, yes. Remy is a gnome zookeeper, so let's grab a gnome token. That is Lem. Lem is a halfling. You guys put him under the wrong thing. Remy looks like a hobo, by the way, so I'm trying my best to find like best hobo picture for Remy. Actually, that looks fairly close to what Remy looks like under the halfling. Yeah, that's what we're gonna use. Remy's in the mix. Remy is in the mix, so he is in the supply room. Yeah, so I'm just loading this up, and I gotta get them into that. So how? So when they start stopping people who are fleeing, maybe some of them could be like, oh, some of them went in the reptile room. You know, some of the zookeepers were telling us to run in there, and we couldn't make it. We had to run past because, you know, there was a snake, this giant snake, and it crawled into the water. I could tell them that because it literally says there's a snake in the water, and there's no way for them to know because it is a ridiculous. It's in the water, and the water is murky to begin with. So they would have to go swim or like jump in the water. Actually, it says if they come within 10 feet, the snake thing just tries to pull them in and eat them, which is cool. It says right here. So the giant viper, CR2, actually one of the lower monsters. The weak hyenas are actually CR0. She makes no move against characters, but as soon as they pass within 10 feet, north or south end of her pool. They get a Big Bertha gets a +4 bonus stealth. If reduced to 5 hit points or fewer, it sinks to the bottom of the 10-foot deep pool. So this pool is 10 feet deep, right? And it rises every 10 minutes for oxygen. So the north and south. So if they come here, they're kind of walking near the Ankeg area. That's the north. And the south, if they take the road B4, if they go near the water, she pops out. I mean, like, that's an option. Have them know that she's in there. I kind of wish it was a giant octopus for, you know, shout out to the Lord of the Rings, where they were entering the gates of Moria and the giant octopus tried to eat them. So I think this encounter right here, this encounter might take up the whole night, but you never know, right? Like, that's the problem when you're DM prepping. You don't even know. Sometimes you think, oh, this encounter is going to be incredibly hard. They're never going to get past it. Hopefully it doesn't kill them. Yada, yada, yada. All of a sudden, boom, they beat the encounters in about 5 seconds. Hoots is the owl bear's name, by the way. Hoots, a female elf merchant, is in the shop hiding. So this is a story of a girl who cried the river and drowned the whole world. Sorry. So there is a elf hiding. So let's put her in female elf token. Female. Not too many female elf tokens. Or they could all be female. There you go. She is hiding. So she is going to be right there. Hiding here. So stuck, like you can't escape, and she knows you can't go back there. In B3, what do we got in B3? B3 is the smithy. Oh, there is a blacksmith in there. Human blacksmith is actually in there every so often fighting with the rust monster. And the thing with rust monsters is they're fairly difficult. They have a strong hide, so you can't deal a lot of damage to them. So you need to. It's fairly difficult to hurt a rust monster who is eating your wares, and that's the problem. Now this is a cool thing, right? They save the blacksmithy in here. Blacksmithy literally says, "Tell me what you want, I got you," and that's it. Like, the players, it says their treasure, Parvaz wears only. Rusty is currently gluttoning himself on Parvar's wares, only occasionally bothered to snap at the smith, beating ineffectually on Carapace, the rust monster's hide. If the agents attempt to interfere, the rust monster immediately turns and attacks because of the foam. So what the players will know is that the foam is causing the monsters to become like this. So they do need to like interact with one, not the monsters, the creatures earlier, because they need to know what's happening, and if one of them notices it, they'll know that like this isn't really the creature's fault. It's something mentally happening to them. So, and it targets the player with the most armor. Rust Monster is a CR4, and Parva is overwhelmed by the destruction of his inventory, but deeply grateful to the agents for handling the situation. He offers to make or give the agents any metal weapons or armor they might desire for free, up to a maximum value, cumulative value of 50 gold pieces. That is a lot of armor. That is like a lot. Or gear. He also offers to customize each piece of gear, working heraldry or artwork significant to the characters into design. Any special orders of this sort can be picked up in a day or two. So, if you're playing this, and let's say you're playing a champion, and you were like, oh, I really want plate armor, you're now getting plate armor at like level 1. Dope plate armor at level 1. Because it needs to be less than 50 gold pieces or cumulative 50 gold pieces. And I am pretty sure plate armor is less than 50 gold pieces. I'm just going to double check on my app on my phone. Because, yeah. So not much setup on this, because it's all done. Like, honestly, it's a lot of it's done. It's just knowing how to deal with it. And I think by putting in the crowd, my players will be given the opportunity to talk to them and have them hear, like, hey, this is what's happening. We need you to do this. You know, we need you. Like, there's people stuck in the reptile area. There's, you know, crazy things happening. Don't go near the Ankeg. There's, you know, it's rough in there. I mean, I don't really want to say that, only because they might choose not to go in there. Full plate. Oh, it's a lower restriction of 2, but 30 gold pieces. So you could get half plate, which is 18 gold pieces, which is not bad. That's a level 1 thing. That's really dope as a thing for players who need armor, who like want armor. So they have the opportunity to get really strong armor. Yeah, so my goal here is to have the players talk to one of these fleeing customers. I wish I could put 1 customers on. I mean, I'm just gonna put 1. They're not gonna know the difference. Yeah, so they're gonna talk to these fleeing customers. The customers are gonna be like, oh my god, there are people stuck in the reptile area. We need to get, like, you need to get them out. Well, and they're not going to be able to tell them everything, but there's people in here that they can save. This guy's fighting the rust monster with 55 HP and 21 armor, and the bugbear has the owl bear has 19 AC and 55 HP. Yeah, so these things are wildly powerful compared to the players. Just wildly powerful, and I'm really concerned about that. There is the flash beetle though with the 6 HP. They got that unlocked. The flash beetle is going to be the one thing they can kill easily. But yeah, so I think by having a crowd kind of meet the players, they'll be able to kind of get a little bit more information besides get there and figure it out. And by having that happen, they could kind of come to a conclusion. This is the area that I do not want them to split up on. I would be mortified if they decided to split up on in this area. I'm concerned that one of my players is going to go like, yeah, let's get into a fight with everything, and not realize that this can be a very difficult task. Sadly, this is not one of the encounters you could skip. This kind of sets up something that will happen later on, and as there is spoilers, the poison or the toxin that's causing the creatures to go mad is actually from a character that you'll meet way later in this chapter, in this book. So if they finish this, I did prep up the next section, which is chapter 2, which is missing persons, and that's the Dragonfly Pagoda. Oh, one last thing. So I forgot to describe some of the really cool things that they would see in the fair, and the one big thing was they would see this the grave raker, a giant machine that dominated the skyline, is in this area. So they, like, kind of from wherever you are, you could see this giant grave raker, and it looks kind of like a giant how would I describe it? It would be like a conveyor belt that like digs things up and moves the ground away. So it's like an oblongated conveyor belt that with buckets. That's like, and as it turns, it digs and digs and digs. So it's an interesting thing. I can look that up as to like what it looks like exactly. I'm sure they give me a description in the book, in the very back of the book. The festival, and what's here. The Grand Exposition Opera. Sorry, they give you so much. Notable guests, attendance, Beldrin's Tower. Sorry, the Dragon Pagoda, the Hall of Nations, Living Lake, Esker's Camp, the Coral Breach, Silver Swan, Mystic Gardens, Adventurer's Toolbox. Yeah, so they give me what it is. I'm just gonna look it up real quick. Handcuffs. So there's a lot of stuff here that you have the opportunity to use. Roku Bat, Grosspec Lavaris is the sergeant. We're also, she comes in later. Sorry, I'm just looking for this now. The agent should reach level 2 after resolving hostage situation in the Dragonfly Pagoda. So they're going to be level 1 throughout this whole thing. That's a lot for them to be dealing with. Because honestly, that is crazy. Like, I just know, like, if you're not prepping for this, and let's say your players just kind of rush into this, like they do everything else, and you might be playing for longer than 4 hours, right? Like I used to do the 8-hour Sunday sessions where, Grosspec is the lieutenant. I just call him the lieutenant because I don't like his name. Yeah, so like, if you're not prepping, and let's say your players kind of deal with everything really quickly, like the beat and the goblin stuff can be handled fairly quickly, right? Like it's not something that you have to like worry about. They could get here and think they can handle this, and then all of a sudden you have an owl bear that is just tearing them apart, and it's a weird encounter, is all I'm saying. And I would be very concerned for my players if they weren't thinking in advance. They would want to, I would want to kind of prep them, or maybe prep the scenario, because like you might sit down and have read this and been like, oh, okay, they just, you know, they'll be able to handle this, it's not that hard, right? And then they get there and they get scrubbed real fast by the Anke, which will kill them. The owl, and remember, they're all frenzied. These aren't like, there's no way to scare them off and stuff like that. Your best bet is sometimes to just leave them alone and figure it out later. And that's the problem with this scenario is all of a sudden you have these players who feel emboldened to rush into this, and then all of a sudden now you're dealing with, oh well, I didn't expect the freaking owl bear to just wreck me like that. And you're like, well, you know, and I always have this problem as a DM. My roles as a DM, amazing. Just freaking amazing. I will roll 20s back to back without a problem. As a player, I'll never see a 20. But as a DM, I can roll them back to back sometimes. Sometimes I'll roll them 3 times in a row. And Fabio, my player, will tell you he hates seeing it. Because I play a lot of times when I DM, like when I play in person, I don't use a DM screen. I roll out in the open. Because I want my players to trust me. I want them to know I'm not cheating. And do I say it's okay to cheat as a DM? Yeah. When it's good for the story. You know, when you need the story to work. Or you not work, but when you know the story will be better without suddenly a TPK. But TPKs can happen. And this scenario, I could see that happening. Because you might accidentally run, you know, so you might run in. All of a sudden, you're now dealing with, ironically, on the cover is the cockatrice. So you might be dealing with a cockatrice. The cockatrice stones one of your friends, turns them to stone, because that's what they do. Your friend's now turning to stone. You're trying to drag them away, and you're like, oh, yeah, just leave. We'll go into this. We'll rush into this storefront right here with the general store with the groceries. And they rush in, and now there's an owl bear who looks up from the food that it's consuming and rushes them because now they look like helpless new food targets. And now they're dealing with a cockatrice and an owl bear. I mean, it's not unreasonable to argue that the cockatrice and the owl bear might start to fight each other. But more or less, the cockatrice or the owl bear might kill them before they fight each other. It's completely feasible. I'm just gonna have to quick search here, Control F. So grave, because I wanna. The Grave Rake, the Gyroscopic Tower, and the Radiant Festival has attracted hundreds. Grave Rake. Called the Grave. Grave Raker. Let's see. International exhibits too large, complex, or dangerous to fit in the Hall of Nations. Instead, reside on the Silver Lawn. Minkai's Dragon Pagoda, the Gyroscopic Tower of Kalesh, and the building-size Arcadian excavator machine called the Grave Raker are the attractions that dot the broad scape of the flattened land, named for the way its Eobarian bluegrass looks nearly metallic during sunsets. So that is castle built by a terrifying massive excavator machine called the Grave Raker. They don't give a really good see, that's Remy, as I was talking about. Remy is a gnome, kind of looks beat up because the monsters went crazy. Generic gnome, pointy ears. If you gave Rumpelstiltskin from Shrek brown hair, that's kind of what Remy looks like. That's the best way to put him. So, yeah, so you have this situation here. You have them deal with this, and then let's say they deal with this fast, quick, and in a hurry. Somehow they get through everything. My players will then be on to the Dragonfly Pagoda. I'm going to load that up here. The Dragonfly Pagoda actually looks like a massive dragonfly with wings. So that's kind of beautiful. And this is really cool because Amiko is here. And my players just went through Rise of the Runelord. And they don't know that Amiko later on, if you're new to Pathfinder, a lot of the NPCs that you deal with in other adventures, in other adventure paths, show up in a lot of the other adventure paths, and then all of a sudden now you're dealing with reoccurring NPCs. So first off, if you have a voice, you need to remember it. You're and if you're lucky like myself, I'm just gonna make myself big. Chat. You'll be a podcaster and then can re-listen to it. But yeah, so like Amiko in one of the adventure paths, I think it's like the Ruby Throne. It's the yeah, it's something like that. What is up, Waffle Maple Syrup Raving? Thank you very much. Hi everyone. So we're just doing. I don't want you guys to be surprised. I'm just GM prepping Agents of Edgewatch. So hi Amanda. Yeah, so I'm prepping. So this is a spoiler. I'm giving you guys a head up. This is a spoiler thing. Just please, if you don't want spoilers, get out now. I'm prepping Agents of Edgewatch. I don't want to spoil stuff if you haven't gotten up to it. My characters are just dealing with the pagoda and the zoo. So hi all Waffle Maple Syrups raiders. How's it going? Thank you for raiding. Yeah, so if you don't know, we're Nothing Venture, Nothing Game. We're a podcast, actual play. We are doing Agents of Edgewatch. And yeah, so we play tomorrow. We go live tomorrow, 7:45-ish, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, we're doing Agents of Edgewatch. If you're interested in, I know Waffle Maple Syrup. I think you guys are also running it on your channel. So it's always cool to see how different people run it. Like I know I take a lot of NPCs who aren't important and somehow they become really important in my campaigns. Obviously everyone's different. So yeah, but thank you very much for the raid. Yay! Thank you, Blaze, for that gift sub to Waffle Maple Syrup. So yeah, so we this is just GM prepping. So this is spoilers, so get out now. I'm just trying to tell you guys to get out. Don't stick around. I'm sorry. Woo. Death by Waffles, thank you for following. Yeah, I'm not trying to ruin anyone's game right now. So I'm just DM prepping. This was my way to do it. I wasn't doing it for my last campaign. I was doing a lot of things off the cuff of my pants. And I just realized looking into the what was it? When they're dealing with the zoo, my players are just getting up to the zoo. That it's crazy powerful compared to like my players all at level 1. I was saying like I had to put in a bunch of NPCs for them to be able to know what's going on, because the Olo doesn't really give them a lot to go on. It's just like, hey man, like just go down there and figure it out. Like, you guys are guards, go be guards. And they get there, and I feel like up to this point your characters would feel emboldened to be aggressive in this scenario, because they can role play, and the book does push for role play. But in this scenario, the monsters are all frenzied. They're just, I'm a monster. Or the creatures, right? They're not monsters. They're more of a zoo, a menagerie, Knight's Marvelous Menagerie zoo, and they're all hyped up on a new chemical that a character later on shows up, and yeah, they're all frenzied outside their mind, and they're aggressive. So I don't know if you guys have gotten to it, or if anyone's played into it, but yeah, so like I'd be very careful. Like me personally, it sounds dangerous. Like I'm concerned for my players, especially like the newer players who've never really done a lot of roleplay, or TRPGs, TTRPGs, that they would be like, oh, we can handle this, and then just get wrecked. Or they're coming from like different types of RPGs where your characters have a little bit more life and kind of can handle themselves, like they can punch up. This one, you're not punching up against an owlbear. You're getting wrecked by owlbear. I think with 6 players, it won't be so bad. And a cleric, I mean, Fabio will be happy to start using his heals, but you know, just I'm concerned about that. And then they come into this, they have that end. Thank goodness they're given the night to rest. They're told. I was reading that they get to level 2 after the pagoda, which is a little bit extreme. I think it's kind of a, I don't know. I feel like you should be maybe level 2 after the zoo, only because I it's just so high. But yeah, so that's where I'm at really. This wasn't really supposed to go for 2 hours. I kind of got on at 9, and it's almost 11 now where I'm at, and I feel that like I really prepped up. So you know, kind of going back to what I was talking about with my Roll20, because we're playing on Roll20. You know, I prepped up the zoo, which is over here. As you can see, I have all these like people fleeing. So my hopes is, my hope is my characters will come this way, because it doesn't look like they could come up this way. This is kind of blocked off. So I'm gonna have them come this way, and then I'm hoping they start to speak to some of these people, and they'll be able to say like, "Oh man, like there's people trapped in the reptile pavilion. You guys got to get them out." And then like I'll have like, you know, the people will keep running past and leave. So whoever they grab will be the one to tell them that they have to get over. That they have to get over to B12, B11, or B10. They'll be able to come in here, talk to the 2 zookeepers, and then the zookeepers will give them information about, hey, Knight and this person here have been MIA. They went off to get some hanky panky, and they haven't been back in like a week or so, and the people have just been kind of running the show, the hands. And I'll say like, oh, Remy, Remy's been really stepping his game up. He's been here the longest. I put Remy up here, and they'll be like, so the obvious question is like, where's Remy? And they'll be like, oh, Remy was near the rust monster cage. There's like, oh, where's that? And then they'll say it's, oh, like near the Ankeg area. And like, well, where's that? And then they'll say it's like, oh, it's kind of northwest. You probably passed it as you came through the street. It's like a blue building or a green building. That's what I was thinking. Just give it a color, and then they'll be able to kind of head up towards it. And yeah, they'll meet Remy, and Remy will tell them. Also in here, they'll get Nils' child's MIA, and Remy can give them more information. So my goal is to have them search these 2 vans. They're probably gonna have to deal with this cockatrice, just hands down. I think this stuff and this stuff could be dealt with later. Like, there's no time limit on this scenario. I don't want to give a time limit. I know some DMs might be like, roll a d6, and that's how many like minutes before like the owlbear mauls this person to death, or the rust monster eats this guy. But I think that's a little irrational, because they're gonna pass it, so they're gonna see the owlbear and hear what's going on, and now they're gonna have to fight an owlbear whose AC is 19 and HP is 55. Like, my players don't have this. Like, I don't even know. I mean, a few crits here and there probably, but they're gonna wind up nuking all of this when the Ankeg is the bigger problem, because they're gonna have to get to the boy, and the boy. So this is why I don't know if everyone here plays on Roll20. But the reason why I love Roll20 is I have my boy hidden. So he's back here. He locked himself in. And this is Nils' son. So I have him hidden in the stuff. Oh, Waffle's doing the Extinction Curse. Oh, cool. So I'm not ruining anything for you guys. Um, so when they see them, I'm gonna just switch them over at boop objects and token. Sorry, GM overlay. So you just click them, and then the layer you just put them bloop. That's when they found them. He's now on the token overlay, and I just have to change the objects and tokens. They can talk to him. But I'm gonna put them back. Oops. On the GM layer. So he's hidden, and same thing with the snake in the water. Waffles, how is Extinction Curse? I played like 2 sessions of it, not with Blaze. I played like 2 sessions. We stopped the fire, got into the Hell Knight Citadel, and oh, is it? It's worth it. I love Hell Knights. I thought that was a really cool concept, Waffles. That like they went with Hell Knights as like their book 1 concept, and dragons, because I know that was like the Age of Ashes stuff was like it's about dragons. So I thought that was really interesting that they went with that. I would love to not run, play in the Age of Ashes. But I'm running this, and I'm running Rise of the Rune Lords. I'm trying to do all 3 books on Dead Aussie Gamer, with Dead Aussie Gamer on their channel. That's coming up soon, so that's another like thing I have to prep and do. So I'm doing this, that, and I'm trying to get a 3rd game in. I might GM for like once a month maybe, but I would love. I gotta sit down. You know what? I'm just gonna binge Waffles' channel and just like tomorrow just watch all of the old Extinction book 1 stuff, because I'm just more hyped about the lore. I love Hell Knights. I think that it's a really cool concept. I tried to convince one of my players to be a Hell Knight, and she did not take the bait, so I'm sad about that. So yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, Hell Knights are dope. Hell Knights are on like the top tier of like lore people. I don't know if anyone out there knows, but did they get rid of the Gray Maidens in 2nd edition, or are they still around? Because I know they were very specific to one of the countesses, and she's gone now in like 2E from Chiliax. No, you must commit to a 3rd and 4th game, Blaze, and a 5th game, just all games. Yeah, I don't know. The Gray Maidens were a cool thing. In the playtest for 2nd edition, one of the dedications, they weren't called dedications, they were called archetypes or something. They were like they call them dedications now, but you could have dedicated into a Gray Maiden, and they were an option in the playtest. Like if you read the playtest rules, it was like, oh, it's 2nd level or something. If you're a woman or you identify as a woman, you could join the Gray Maidens, because the Gray Maidens did have trans people in it. I think in Pathfinder, like in actual Pathfinder lore. So if you identified as a woman, or you were a woman, you could join the Grey Maidens. It was an all-female group, which I thought was really cool. And they were not cool with the Hell Knights for some reason. Like they hated each other. But the iconic Grey Maiden, she was cool. She like had like this gnarly scar, and she had like this buzz cut, red hair. And well, I don't know if she was iconic, but like everyone, like she was in the books, and she reminded me of like Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, like in Aliens 2, where like she just became a badass, and she was like, or was that Aliens 3, the one where she's on the she's on the jail planet, and they have to kill the alien that's with them, and she's just like a badass. She's like, no, we're gonna kill it, like we're just gonna kill it. So yeah, Sigourney Weaver in my head is like the ultimate badass. person because of aliens. Like she was or who's Sigourney Weaver? Was it Sigourney Weaver? I forget. Whoever played now I want to look it up. Of course I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, Sigourney Weaver. Yeah. And yeah, Sigourney Weaver, she was in that, and yeah, she was super badass in that. And I was like, oh, that was a cool movie. Yeah. So in my head, that's the great in my head canon, the Gray Maiden lady talks like Sigourney Weaver. Yeah. So I think I'm now rambling because it's less GM prep than it is anything else. And I think we're going to end it here because I got enough prep in. I'm just scared my players are gonna die or TPK or something. It is a aggressive encounter, and I just, we're new to the AP, and I don't want that to happen. So yeah. So from all of us here at Nothing Venture, Nothing Game, meaning me, I want to say if you haven't, please check us out. We are on Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and yeah, at Nothing Venture, Nothing Gamed. We're on our socials at on Twitter and Instagram, so you can find us there. And we have a awesome new website that you can find all of our stuff. It's nvngpodcast.com. You could go there, and that connects all of our stuff. You could see our character bios. You could see our player bios. You could catch up on all of our old podcast stuff. You could, if you want and be super awesome, you could donate to our Patreon. $1 buys us a cup of coffee, and it's awesome. Thank you, Blaze, for linking that, and it really helps out. Besides that, we do charity streams every so often, which is really fun. We do drinking streams. As most of us are older, we can not do as many as we want. We try to plan those out. We do one every maybe 4 months where any a little bit that we get and we have donated, we will drink to. Yeah, so you can find us at NVNG Podcast on Instagram and on our Twitter. We, I believe, are the same handle. We are, again, NVNG Podcast at Twitter, so you can hit us up there. And yeah, so I just want to say thank you very much for being here. We have fun. Thank you, Waffles, for dropping by. You're awesome. If you have any questions, please go to our nvngpodcast.com. We accept all emails, anything you want us to talk about. We love answering questions about games, RPGs, and we really, if you have any questions, like, hey, even like second edition rules questions, we love answering those. We love talking about those. We have Steve, he's our rules lawyer, and we love him for that. We are never mad at rules lawyering because it helps us. And yeah, so thank you very much, and stick around. I'm going to try and get us over into a different raid. So stick around, please, and thank you.